Hello everyone, welcome you all to AI Ki Pathsala. In the last lecture, we have calculated the Fibonacci sequence using recursion. To make things more clear and more understandable, let's run the Fibonacci function which we have discussed in last session for any integer number and see what's happening behind the scene. This is the code for the Fibonacci function. Let's look at what's going on behind the scene when you run this function. So if we call this Fibonacci function with a parameter of 4, the function first goes here to the first line over here. It checks the first condition. We see that 4 is greater than 0 and 4 is an integer number. Then it continues to the next condition over here. Here we see that 4 is not 0 and 4 is not 1, which means that the function will goes to the else condition over here. In else condition, we are doing recursive call twice to our function. The first one will be n minus 1, which in our case will be Fibonacci with the parameter of 3 because 4 minus 1 is 3. And the second one will be n minus 2, which will be 4 minus 2, that is 2 in our case. So we are getting Fibonacci 2. And this function will call these two Fibonacci functions recursively. So once again, we see that we don't have the return value for Fibonacci 3. So our controller will go to the first line over here and it will check whether 3 is greater than 0 and 3 is an integer number. So first condition is okay for me. Then it will move to the next condition here and checks whether 3 is 0 or 1. We know that 3 is neither 0 nor 1. So it will move to the else condition over here. So here in the else condition, again our function will call itself recursively twice. So when calling this Fibonacci function with parameter of 3, it will return Fibonacci 3 minus 1, that is Fibonacci 2, and Fibonacci 3 minus 2, that is Fibonacci 1. Once again, we don't have the return value for this Fibonacci 2. So this function will again call itself recursively. So once again, our control will goes to the first line over here and it checks whether 2 is greater than 0 and 2 is an integer number. So first condition is okay for me. Then it goes to the second condition over here and checks whether 2 is 0 or 1. 2 is neither 0 nor 1. So it will again move to the else condition. In the else condition, we know that it will again call itself recursively twice. So here 2 minus 1 is Fibonacci of 1 and 2 minus 2 is Fibonacci of 0. So here we have calculated the Fibonacci 2. So this calculation will be same as the calculation for this Fibonacci 2. This Fibonacci 2 will again call itself recursively and return these two values over here, which we are getting from here. Now we know that we have the return value for Fibonacci 0 and Fibonacci 1 because from the function you can see if n is 0 or 1, then it will return, and that means if n is 0, then it shall return 0, and if n is 1, then it shall return 1. So here this Fibonacci 0 is going to return 0. This Fibonacci 1 is going to return 1. Now, you see that this Fibonacci 2 is a sum of these Fibonacci 1 and Fibonacci 0. So here 0 plus 1 is 1. So we will get the value for this Fibonacci 2 as 1. Once again, we know that we have a return value for Fibonacci 1. So it will be 1. Since we know here also you see that we have a Fibonacci 1 and Fibonacci 0, and we know that we have a return value for Fibonacci 0. So we will get 0 here, and we have a return value for Fibonacci 1. So we will get 1 here. Now, this Fibonacci 2 is a sum of these two Fibonacci 1 and Fibonacci 0. that is 0 plus 1. So we will get the return value for this Fibonacci 2, that is 1. Now, if you look at this Fibonacci 3, the return value for this Fibonacci 3 will be the return value for the Fibonacci 2 plus the return value for this Fibonacci 1. So we have 1 here and we have 1 here. So 1 plus 1 will be 2. So we will get the return value for this Fibonacci 3. Finally, for this Fibonacci 4, the return value for this Fibonacci 4 will be the sum of the return value for Fibonacci 3 plus the return value for Fibonacci 2, that is 2 plus 1. 2 plus 1 is 3. So finally, we will get the return value for this Fibonacci 4 as 3. Hopefully, everything is clear now with this second example. I hope that creating recursive function with 3 steps is now much more clear. So see you in the next session. Keep learning, keep smiling.